What is poppin', my people? Happy Saturday. Happy live stream Saturday. Today's a good day to get in. That music always ends so abruptly. And I'm always just trying to be prepared to get this thing ready, because sometimes it just feels like this is a plane put together by some very loose bolts, right? The whole online thing can be a challenge, but we're going to get into this today. Cheers. Drinking some Liquid Death water. It's actually really good. Sparkling water. It's amazing. A little bit of lime in it. But today we're going to get into some of the news, right? With housing and the Federal Reserve and what's happening here in Tampa and what's happening nationally as well. I'm going to try to keep today definitely more compact than we have over the last few months here. And if you're joining us for the first time, thanks, man. Thanks for tuning in. Please feel free to leave a comment. I will be more than happy to answer those. We're live over on YouTube, live on Facebook, live on LinkedIn. I think we're basically anywhere with someone who allows us to go live. But I did just want to come in and chop it up, because it's definitely been an interesting few weeks here. And we weren't able to go live last week. Had some family obligations, but it was cool. We are coming into school time, right? Like everybody's either getting back to school right now or has been going back to school over the last few weeks. Here in Florida, the kids go back, in the middle of May, typically towards the beginning of May, depending on where you're at. Our kids went back to school last week, so we're definitely going to get into some of those things as well. But I definitely want to start out right away talking about what's going on with the Federal Reserve, because, we're expecting at this point that, something has to be done, quote unquote. If you look at the article here, we'll get into this in a second, because I definitely want to jump right into this. But, the reality is, inflation is not under control, whether we like it or not. It's just not. And we can argue the politics behind why things are or aren't in the direction that they need to be going. But the fact of the matter is like, you're still paying pretty significant prices at the pump. My grocery bill is not really going down. I don't know if yours is. Let me know in the chat. I'd love to know if you guys are paying less. We're paying less at the pump, but it's still $100 to fill up our vehicle. That's the reality of it. We don't have a small vehicle. We have a SUV, but it's $100. And we're in an industry where we have to drive everywhere to meet our clients. So we can definitely feel that at the pump. I know that, if you're on a fixed income, or you got a salary that you get the same payment every year, then that's a pretty big lift, and the same thing with groceries. I have not seen our clothing and things like that come down dramatically, but this is the reality of what we're dealing with. And the Federal Reserve is put in a precarious position. Whether it was self-inflicted or not doesn't really matter. We're here. And like, that's the thing. Like, I'm not here to get on a political rant or shift blame. At the end of the day, I've got to deal with it. You've got to deal with it, right? So the question we really need to be asking ourselves is like, how do we navigate this? It's not a matter of should or shouldn't, because it's not up to us, right? We make our votes, and then after that, things do what they do. But we're left here to deal with it. And I think that that's important to understand, that in order for us to do that effectively, we just got to understand what the playing field looks like. So my hope is today that we kind of cover, some insights, and I will share my professional opinion about where I think things are going. And I'm going to share data with you guys. I want to share the numbers. So we are definitely going to get into Tampa real estate. We're going to talk about housing starts. And, they're throwing around this buzzword right now, which is called the housing recession. That's what they're calling it. This downturn. And I think we're all in agreement that there needed to be something had to change in housing. Otherwise, it was just going to become so unaffordable that people were going to, they weren't going to be able to buy homes. And that happened, whether we liked it or not. It did happen, and it's still happening. And I think that that's, something that we need to talk about, because it may not affect you, but it affects somebody you love. Right? Whether, it's your children or your grandkids or your neighbor, somebody has been priced out of the market recently, and it's made it pretty tough. As a homeowner, it's awesome until you see your tax bill for the maximum increase that the municipality is allowed to give you, because that's what everybody's been seeing. And, with that, insurance rates have gone through the roof as well, on the inflation side, because of the supply chain and the cost of goods and services. Like, there's a lot of challenges that we're facing in this market right now. So, I just want to talk a little bit about, what do we think is going to happen based upon the information that we've been given, not what, how I feel about things, right? I the data creates feelings, but some of them aren't great. So others are. It's part of the process of navigating these waters. And unfortunately, I think we're kind of stuck in this really weird limbo land of, like, just slower sales volume in real estate as a whole for the foreseeable future. How long that is, I can't honestly tell you. And there's a few glaringly obvious reasons why we're facing some of those challenges. If you look, we've talked about this before, but if you look at the data, on average, somewhere between 10 and 12% of the United States moves every year. That's a very normal cycle. When we came into the pandemic, all of a sudden that really started to increase because people were able to move. They wanted to move closer to family, or they wanted to get away from areas that they may not have necessarily loved, but were there because of employment. And when employers gave people the green light, people decided to move, and they moved mostly to the Sun Belt, but they moved everywhere. Let's be honest. Like, we did a whole video on this, where the migration patterns of where people are moving to, but people got to move. And all of a sudden we went from 10 or 12% to 15% in 2020. That was a pretty big jump. And then in 2021, it was almost 20% of Americans moved, which is crazy. And out of those 20%, another 20% relocated to another state. Like, holy cow. So everybody's been seeing this influx, and areas like Tampa specifically have just been the benefactor of that. Miami's exploded, Naples exploded, Orlando exploded, Tampa's exploded. And, areas that were very expensive, people were, moving away from, and moving to areas that gave them more options. And like I said, Tampa was definitely the benefactor. I just got clients that, under contract this week, that sold their home in Seattle, and did very well, and have come here, and they're going to be able to buy an extremely nice home and put a significant amount of money down on that property and have a very low mortgage. And while interest rates are higher than that they were, in December of last year, there's no doubt 5.5%, 4, if you're putting a chunk down and you're going conventional 15, you can still see those 4.75s. But we're seeing 5.5 to 6% interest rates pretty regularly at this point. But they're still getting a tremendous value. And I don't know what their payment was before, but they feel like they're getting a real good value, making that move, with the assets that they made, that equity they took from their home in Seattle and that home sale. So, like, you still have to keep things in mind of, like, expense. Calling something expensive is completely relative to the individual, and that affects everybody differently, right? You see, it happens all the time. You'll go into a restaurant, like maybe you do or I do or whatever. We go into a restaurant and we look at, there's a $16 hamburger on there. You're like, wow, that seems expensive. But to somebody who makes, $200,000-$300,000 a year, a $16 hamburger might not be a big deal to them. You walk into restaurants and people are paying $1,000 for a steak, like, and that you're like, I would never do that. And someone else, that's not it. It's their first hour of the day's wages. Like, and I'm not making an argument for some, the wealth or not wealth, but, like, just the reality of it is depending on where you are, right, in your financial abilities and geography perspective, like, these things matter to people at different levels. And I wanted to start with that because, like, if you've lived in Florida or if you've lived in Tampa your entire life, and you're making the average salary here, which is not enough to cover the new cost of living over the last 2 years, then it's very challenging. But if you're moving from a place like California or Oregon or, Pacific Northwest or even the Northeast, Tampa is still a value. And that's the thing that people really have a hard time wrapping their mind around, because they're seeing this stuff and, like, it's overpriced. Well, overpriced to who? This is the question you have to ask, right? Is it overpriced to you? Apparently so. Is it overpriced to other people? No, other people look at it as an extreme value. So these are the things that we really get challenged with when we're seeing inflation and growth and things that are happening in our marketplace right now that, we weren't ready for. The thing about housing is our, as a homeowner or a home buyer or a home seller, good, consistent, steady growth is where we expect the real estate market to be, right? We, as a person growing up in America, you're told go to school, get good grades, buy a home, live the family dream or the American dream, right? And you've been taught that this steady, stable growth is what you can come to expect from real estate. And I am in full agreement that is a much more palatable place to live, because this hockey stick we were on was just unsustainable. So now we're starting to deal with some of that stuff. So sorry for getting long-winded with you there, guys, but I think it's important that we kind of talk about this. Yeah, so there's some good stuff here in here, Doug. And I'm going to put some comments into here in a minute because the market is changing, right? We've been talking about this for the last, few months. If you're following me at all, you know that I bring you the data, so you can kind of sort through it on your own. But I want to get to some of these comments really quick. And hey, if you let me know where you're watching from, I'd love to know. It's always great to see where people are plugging in from. But I wanted to jump in here with some of these comments right out of the rip. Doug, who's on the live streams pretty constantly. Doug, thanks for showing up on the regular, man. I appreciate you tuning in, and you always tend to lend pretty good perspective. I appreciate it. Doug's dialed into the numbers, y'all. He's watching the stuff like I'm sure. Ben Malov, Equity Partners. You have to know that the party is over. I think that's pretty fair. And like I said, we're going to talk about why I think this stagnation in real estate is upon us more than anything else. Said 2 days after selling 90 million in Florida real estate investments. Hold on. That's what he said. I'm thinking he's talking about the quote where that came from. So one of my California properties yesterday, getting closer to my Florida move. There you go. So Doug's watching from California, and he's considering making that jump down here. So let's talk about this percentage thing. And I was just recently talking about, then I want to jump into some articles and then data, and then get you guys on your Saturday here. I want you to kind of take a step back and think about what's happened over the last 2 to 3 years, like from a macro perspective. Go out 30,000 foot. You've got a lot of homeowners who moved into their houses prior to the pandemic that didn't want to leave during the pandemic. Maybe they moved to their forever home or the place where they love being, or like you just didn't want to move. You like your house, you like your community, you like your neighborhood, you got a great job, like you're not going anywhere. Well, those homeowners were able to take advantage of rock bottom interest rates over the last 2 years, right? I saw refis as low as 2.15. I saw one. Holy cow. Right now, it wasn't a 30-year fix. It was a 10-year loan. They got really aggressive trying to pay it off. That's awesome. But there's a lot of people who refinance somewhere between 2.5% and 3.5% on the home that they currently were in as the pandemic was going on, as people were moving around and things were getting crazy, right? I think we can all agree that a lot of that happened. Now, I'm trying to track those numbers down exclusively. I'm really working on finding those because I would love to know what is the percentage of Americans that took advantage of those lower interest rates that were living in their home. But let's just use really conservative numbers, okay? Let's say that 20% of the homeowners refinanced, which to me seems ridiculously low, but I'm speculating. So I'm just letting you guys know, right? But on top of that, you had home buyers who have been buying like crazy over the last 2 years who are buying in at those rates. Okay. So let's just say that's another 20%. So we've got 40% of the inventory now again, this is anecdotal evidence, right? But I think we can all agree there's a pretty large percentage of the population that either moved over the last 2 years, because we know those numbers, right? 20% and 15%, 25% of the country moved. Okay. So 25% of the country that moved at a fairly low interest rate. And then you've got homeowners who refinanced, took advantage of those interest rates. So now you've got home buyers who most likely don't want to move. Most people's goal is not to move somewhere and then turn around and move again within another 24 months, right? And then you've got another segment of the homeowners population that refinanced and are staying in place, right? So, you've got a pretty significant component of this inventory kind of landlocked, so to speak, where they're not going anywhere, right? Because why would you consider moving now when yes, your property is worth more, right? If you owned a $250,000 home, which was the median at the beginning of the pandemic, and now your home's worth $450,000, you got $200,000 in equity. That's awesome. But now you're looking at other properties at a 5.5% interest rate if you sell your home, and it's a lateral move. Like, you're not going to get more house for the same amount of value. So you're in this really tough spot, which is why I think, this is another component of this real estate recession, or whatever they're calling it. But really, we got to deal with the fact that people have great rates that they're locked in at, right? So, if you've got a $500,000 mortgage and you're making a $2,100 payment on it, and now you're out there looking to shop again, and the same bank is telling you it's going to cost you $3,100 a month, time out. Time out, right? Like, I'm not moving. I'm going to sit on this for the next few years, right? So this is what you got, this pressure here, right? And then you had interest rates take off, right? The Federal Reserve had been increasing the prime interest rate, the overnight interest rate. Now, again, we've talked about this before. They are not directly responsible for the mortgage rates, but we all can recognize the similarity in how they run. We had a nice little dip on interest rates earlier in the beginning of July, and now what's happening is interest rates are staying fairly stable. I'm very intrigued to see what's going to happen here. We check mortgage news daily all the time, and again, we're right in that mid 5.5 right now. Okay, and this is going to completely depend on your credit score. If you've got a 580 credit score, you're not getting the best interest rates. If you've got an 800 credit score, you're going to get a great interest rate, right? So, like, keep that in perspective. But we're stuck in this space, right? And then, most recently, the Fed chair, and this is why I want to get into this just a little bit today before we get into the numbers, because I think it's important to recognize what this man was saying out loud. And the last time he stood in front of an audience, he said the same thing. He said, I'm going to show you what he said, rather than just laying it out there, y'all. So bear with me here, because I want to share this with you. Let me get in here. All right. Let's see if this is a better look. Oh, yeah, you guys can see better that way. Who knew? Who knew? Bear with me. All right. So Jerome Powell says Federal Reserve is reserved to fight inflation, and they've got a target goal of 2%. That's where they want this inflation to be. But what I want to do is get into these the quotes specifically, and because the language was very strong. But what he's saying, we got to read the tea leaves, so to speak. And again, this is one man's perspective on what I thought I heard, but also what I'm seeing in the marketplace, right? So we're taking forceful action and rapid steps to moderate demand. So when it comes to better alignment with supply and to keep inflation expectations anchored, we will keep it until we are confident the job is done. So what the Fed is signaling here is we don't believe that we've got interest rates under wraps. And, if you guys followed me, they've been chasing their tail here. I firmly believe that's where they are. And I want to see if they got any more of the quote. While lower inflation readings for July are welcome, a single month's improvement falls short of what the federal policymakers will need to see before we are confident that inflation is moving down, Powell said. Okay. And then the big thing he said here, and this is the thing that we got to pay attention to. History shows that the employment costs of bringing down inflation are likely to increase with delay. Our aim is to avoid that outcome by acting with resolve. But what he said is we have and they don't have the direct quote in this article, but what the chairman said was, bear with me, I want to kill this. Okay. What the chairman said specifically was that there's going to be collateral damage from us continuing to push interest rates higher. Because what's happening here is you're looking at companies, right? Companies are now going, well, if it costs me more money to borrow money to grow my business, okay, then I've got to still make my same profits, or I still have to make a profit, right? I can't go bankrupt trying to do this thing. So in order to reel costs back in, where's the first place that they typically will go, right? They can either raise prices, which has been the issue, right? Or they can start to reduce their cost. And the fixed cost of running a business is almost always labor, right? Um, it's almost always labor, right? So, we've got to take a genuine look at where do we think that these businesses are going to go, and you see these things. Ford announced this week they're laying off 3,000 white collar employees. You know what I mean? Like you keep seeing this one company after another. Google announced this week that it was going to be a bloodbath. That was a headline that I think it was trash. But the meat of the conversation was that they are expecting to lay people off, and it's not because they're not making money. All of these companies are making profits right now, right? But they're committed to those profits, right? And that's going to come the cost of laying people off. So I think it's very important to understand this is the thing that is more challenging to the real estate market right now, is the fact that we've got a significant amount of inventory that's kind of locked up from people who have taken advantage of awesome rates and that have already moved over the last 2 years. Again, if we moved 13% more than normal people, well, there's going to be some kind of flattening out on that, right? Like if we had a really hot 2 years, then by definition, forget about pricing. You're going to have a slowdown in real estate because less people are moving, because more people moved over the last 2 years. Again, this has been a very stable asset class. And if you go back and look at the Fed chart, you can tell that, 10 to 12% of America move every year, right? Or 8 to 12 or whatever the number is, but it's right in that window and it's very consistent. So, when you start to see this, you're like, okay, well, we know that eventually people aren't going to move as much, right? And then you add interest rates on top of that and it starts slowing down. So this is the thing I want you guys to kind of wrap your mind around. As they keep pushing on this interest rate thing, they're trying to cool the economy. They're trying to get us to stop making large purchases, right? So we don't consume as much supply is not needed. And all of a sudden prices in theory start to fall, right? Now, what they fall to, this is the $1 million question, y'all. This is the thing that you have to try to figure out. They don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. You don't know the answer. No one knows that answer, right? But what are they going to fall to? What I firmly believe is they are never falling back to where they were. And I'm not talking about housing. I'm talking about everything, right? Just like taxes, right? Taxes don't go down, y'all. My life has cost me more money every single year since I can remember. And I don't know about you. And it's not just because we made more and spent more. That's part of it also. But that's just a reality. Every year, things cost more money. They just cost more money, right? And we're looking at automobiles now that cost $100,000. They cost as much as a home in Detroit. The median home in Detroit is $100,000. Well, the same people building those cars have to pay $100,000 to buy a Ford Lightning, right? Electric pickup. Like, what in the world? Like, pricing's nuts right now. So I know I'm going tangent on this, but I think it's super important. Okay. So, but what I wanted to do, is talk about what's going on with the Federal Reserve and why that's important to not only housing, but the economy overall, because you need to be mindful, because uncertainty breeds inaction, right? Anytime people are uncertain, they typically won't move. They won't take action. They're fearful. And that's not like, we're human beings. It's biologically built into us, right? Like, no, there's danger over there. I'm not going that way. And uncertainty for a lot of people equals danger. And when we can't see how to navigate the waters, we typically will kind of like get real, you move, but it's slowly, right? And that is what is happening in real estate right now. So what I wanted to do, guys, is kind of jump in and show you actual numbers of what's happening in Tampa Bay. And again, if you're watching this from somewhere else in the country, I would encourage you to go look at things like Redfin. I'll show you the site that I love to use because it's on the fly and they do a really good job of collecting data. But also, I'd love to know where you guys are watching from. If you got any questions, throw them in the chat. Or you got any comments you want to add to the conversation here, please put that in the chat. I will gladly share that with the feed here so everybody can kind of check it out, as long as it's not profane and nuts, right? Let's see here. Okay, cool. So what I want to do now is I want to get into specific numbers with y'all because I think this is worth sharing. Okay, boom. So what you're looking at here is July's data. And we've talked about this before, but we usually don't get the month's data, the previous month's data until about mid-month. And that's because there has to be recording at the county and make sure that all of these things shake out, right? Everything is actually closed. They verify that stuff by recording it, and then we get the numbers shared with us. I show you guys live stats, and we'll do that at the very last thing here, like take a snapshot of everything. But what I want to do is I want to show you guys what's happening here right now. And I hope that this is large enough for everybody to kind of see here. My guess is, and I've told you before, they pull Hernando into this chart here. Hernando's not Tampa, y'all. It's not. And this pulls the numbers down a little bit. It pulls the average sales number down. You know, and I'm going to show you Hillsborough and Pinellas County specifically, which is far more better representation of Tampa Bay. But I think it's important that you guys check this out as well. All right. So here's the thing that I do want to show you. Like, let's deal in reality. Okay. So closed sales, those are the actual homes that closed in the month of July that were recorded with the counties. Okay. That number was down almost 25% of closed sales. Now, remember, closed sales and sales price are not the same thing. The sky is not falling. I want you to wrap your mind around it. But when you look at the actual unit numbers, these are the things I want you to stay focused on. So in July of 2021, there was 4,900 home sales. There were 3,600, almost 3,700 in July of 22. How many people paid in cash? This number's interesting as well. You're seeing a 22% decrease, but really there's only about 350 houses less that sold in cash, which is, to me, is still a pretty significant number. Sold over 1,100 units sold in cash. The median price point. Now, here's the thing. Y'all, they're talking about you're seeing price reductions all over the place, which you are. I'm going to show you the actual numbers, but what you need to recognize is how far these things have to go back to ever be back to a quote unquote normal number, or whatever. I don't know how people are approaching this. This is the new cost of real estate, right? So last year, July of 2021, when people already thought things were insane, we're up to 415,000 today, right? That is a tremendous difference, y'all. Like, I want you to wrap your mind around that. That's how far it has to fall 22% just to get back to 2021, where people already thought real estate was insane. Okay. So like, that's a long way. I really want you guys to wrap your mind around that. Now, here's the reality of it. The median and the average, right? The average sales price, which is the one that actually, when we're buying and selling real estate, this is pretty much the world we're living in. That number is 505,000. So basically it's what it costs. It's really around $450,000 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in the Tampa Bay area right now. But that was the average sales price in July. The dollar volume fell $100,000. $1 million to 1.9 billion. So that's down 7.2%. Median price versus the listed price. So the average, everything basically sold at what they're asking, but that's not true. It was down a little bit. I'm going to show you some details there as well. Again, this is 4 counties. I want to get more granular. So the median time to contract was 6 days in 2021. It was 8 days. This is the thing. It's up 33%. Like, that's not a significant number, right? You need houses to sit on the market for months to get back to a balanced market, right? And these things are going under contract in days still, right? And we're talking 8 days is not a significant amount. We need that way higher if we want these numbers to flatten out. All right. Median time to sale. This means from contract to close. That's what we're referring to here. Okay. 47 days. The new pending sales. Now here's the thing. Pending sales fell over July. They went from 4,600 to 3,700, almost down 1,000 units. So that's a significant number in terms of pending sales. New listings. This number is very consistent. Here's the thing. We didn't have enough inventory last year. People were screaming that we didn't have enough inventory. And I want you to look at the number. There was 5,600 homes that were listed in July 2021. There were only 5,700. So we are not anywhere where we need to be to see a balanced market from buyers and sellers. And again, buyers are starting to get the upper hand, but I'm going to walk you through why, because this is the thing about data. You can use it for or against any argument, right? And I find it fascinating. But again, we're always talking about where's the puck going. Vlad says, Vlad from Texas, Florida is definitely an interest in the future. What's up, Vlad? Thanks for chiming in, my man, letting us know. And we'd love to have you. So just let us know how we can help in any way, shape, or form. All right. Pending inventory went from 6,300. Now pending, these are the homes that were in contract, went from 6,300 down. Okay. All right, let's get to some real numbers here. I want you guys to look at where's the puck going here? Closed sales. This is what we want to see. So going back year over year, July 21, okay, they were down. We were already down 7% in closed sales because we didn't have enough inventory. All right, August, looking at these numbers. Now here's the trend. July of 22, we were down 24% in closed sales, almost 25% as we discussed. We were down 16% in June. So both those months were coming down there, right? May we were down, April we were down, March we were down, February we were down. This is where this trend starts. Now, interest rates started to shift back in December. Okay. So I think that's why obviously you see 2.2% up, 2.3%. Now, as interest rates started to rise, you started to see this decline. And this is what this is why I started talking about interest rates and the parallels, right? So you're starting to see this shift of less and less home sales. And again, we also have this locked up inventory of home buyers who've moved in the last 2 years and home sellers who have refinanced at these, 2.5% to 3.5% range that have no incentive to move right now. So that's going to put a lot of pressure on this inventory. And this is why homes are still moving. Now, here's the thing I want you to see here. All right, single family homes. These were cash sales. I don't want to get in that. What I want to do is I want to go over into Hillsborough County. So what we just saw is the 4 counties, right? So I wanted to talk about that really quick. This is Hernando, Pasco, Hillsborough, and Pinellas. And if you guys know me, to me, Tampa Bay is Pasco, Hillsborough, and Pinellas. Right now, these numbers are thrown in here, but I want to refine these and get these a little bit closer for everyone here. Let's go to Hillsborough in particular. Similar stats, down 22% in closed sales. Cash sales were down 17%. Median sales price is up year over year. You can see these numbers are still growing incredibly. It went from 350 to 437 on the median. On average, it went from 423 to 545,000, over $100,000 gain. $100,000, man. So like these people out here seeing price decreases are telling me, they're like, you guys are nuts. You're lying. Prices aren't still going up, but the numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. So this isn't an agenda. I want to show you guys what's happening with this data. This is pricing, the median sales price. This chart right here. This is what I want to dig into this. All right. So look at this. Bear with me here. So let's go from December. And you can see numbers are still climbing. They are still on the upward trend here. Now, I think that this is the last month in Hillsborough, and bear with me, but I wanted to show you this. Now I want to move to Pinellas County. Pinellas County is where the Gulf Coast beaches are. Think St. Petersburg, Clearwater. This is the area that we're talking about. Okay, y'all? So this is the spot where we're looking at. Sales were down 30%, closed sales. Paid in cash was down 30%, which thank God that needed to happen. Median sales price went from 375 to 450. The average sales price went from 495 to 585,000. So that wouldn't even quite make 100,000, but we already up versus Tampa proper. Again, days to contract. Went from 7 days to 10 days. We still have a strong velocity in our turn here, but here's something that I do want to look at, right? When we look at these sales prices, the median, we do have some in Pinellas County. There has been a little bit of there was a slight dip in June on pricing, and then it went back up again there. Let me erase that so you guys can see this, but this is what I'm referring to right here. The median sales price. You had a dip in June, and then it went back up a little bit in July. It looks like it went right up to match May. So you're still seeing that velocity in place. Now, I want to run over to live numbers and share this with you guys really quick. Okay, so let's look at this area right here. Let's see if I can zoom in on a little bit for you. Actually, let me try that. Let's try that first. Let me get a little bit. But I want you guys to look at this. I'm going to circle it. I know this is a hot wreck, but I think it's helpful. All right, this is a 7-day average, and I'm bringing this up for a reason. This is actual live data from my MLS feed, the multiple listing service, where all of us real estate professionals put all of the properties that get sold by a licensed realtor. Okay, there are still for sale by owner stats, and that's why that these numbers aren't the final. It's the ones that I just shared with you, right? Because we don't have access to for sale by owners. They're doing it on their own, and they're legally allowed to do that, right? But here's where we're at. And this is the thing that I want to focus on, because for 3 straight weeks, I've seen the same thing. And I want to show you guys this, right? Because if it's been trending that way 3 weeks, then the month's pretty much going to shake out like that. But then, I got too quick there. The new listings were 1,233 over the last 7 days. Now, here's what I want you to keep your eye on. Pending sales. Okay, this means the properties that went under contract. There were 1,366 homes that went under contract and only 1,233 that got listed. For 3 straight weeks, we've had more pending sales than we've had new listings come to the market. Does that mean our market's slowing down or is it speeding up? Our market velocity is starting to increase. So sales velocity is starting to tick up, even though interest rates are there. Now, I think that's happening because people have finally come to terms with this is what like 5.5% is what I'm going to have to deal with, right? Now, here's the other thing I'm going to make note of, this price decrease line. And this is the one where you're talking about, when I first started talking about this price decrease number. You're hearing this all the time. We're drawing over this thing. You're hearing this all the time. There's price decreases everywhere. Prices are going down. No, a price decrease, meaning that the price that a homeowner is asking for the home does not equal, right, a reduction in overall values of real estate. Now, over time, will it? The answer is yes, absolutely. But it hasn't affected us yet. And you can see it in the sales volume. Okay. And the numbers, the sales numbers are up. I just showed you those. I showed you the actual data, right? Nothing to hide there. This thing's going crazy. Bear with me here. But I think that's important to note, right? So as I do these numbers, and I run numbers every week, y'all, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm Juan .alcala.realtor. You can find me there. I actually post these numbers live every single Monday. You can go check these numbers out. You'll see them. But what I want to note is new listings, okay, versus pending. We're at a 100 home deficit, right? There were 100 more homes that went under contract than came to the market. These price decreases are way up. They're almost 50% of the market, which is crazy. So if you don't have your home priced right, I don't care where you are in the country right now. If your home is not priced correctly, you are going to be taking a price decrease because buyers have way more options because the market is moving slower. And there has been more inventory that have come to market. Not much in Tampa, at least, but there has been. The back to the market, those are when properties fall out of contract. Maybe somebody had an inspection, they found something they didn't like, or they just got cold feet, or we got a home under contract. This is happening a lot. They got their pre-approval 90 days ago or 6 months ago at 3.85%. And they went out and started shopping for a home, finally ready to make a move. And then when they put the property under contract, they call their mortgage lender and they find out that their new interest rate is 6%. And they're like, I can't move forward with this. So that contract will cancel and it will come back to market. So you're seeing those things in the marketplace. So this is something I wanted to make sure that I'm sharing with you guys. And then the last thing I want to do here is get into the number here. Like I said before, y'all, Redfin is a great tool. Their economists do a great job, but they do a really good job of tracking data that I think doesn't want to nerd out about everything, but finds value in a resource like this. So I love coming in here and checking out the trends right away. So I've got Tampa is that up here. So Tampa housing market, the median sales price. And again, now this is giving you greater Tampa Bay overall. It's saying that the average sales price or the median is 415,000. Now that's all types of homes. If you're looking at single family, I encourage you to jump in here and dig in a single family home. If you're a condo or a townhome buyer, jump in here and use that tool because it gives you much better perspective on what the actual costs are, right? Because these are different, right? Condos, the average is 275. Townhome, the average is 392, and single family homes the average is 435. So when it says all types, it's blending those together. So what I'd like to do right now is just focus on single family. So you can see 435,000. Average is 11 days on market. Y'all, this is the thing that we have to keep in perspective. So when we come on here, I've got a year-long chart, and the average days on market is 11 days. Houses are still selling really quick. That's not a bad market. Where's the recession? Oh, and I do want to get to one last number: foreclosures and short sales, because this is the thing that I think will help people keep in mind. Here's the last 3 years. Okay, let's go back 5 years. In 2019 and in 2018, these were very stable markets, quote unquote. These were healthy, stable real estate markets. 3 to 5% year annual growth. You know, everybody was happy. There was more than enough time to go look at homes. think about things. You could sleep on a property, come back the next day, write a very fair offer to the seller, have a negotiation conversation. It was a wonderful, I loved selling in 2020. I'm sorry, 2019 and 2018. Just some of my favorite years in real estate. But what I want you to see is the average days on market. You can see that the average days on market, I don't know, I keep jumping out there. Average days on market was over 40. And we're down here talking about 11, y'all. 11 days on market still. So until that number goes over six months, it's got to be at least 60 days to be considered a balanced market, right? So I just wanted to share that with you. How's the housing market in Tampa? It's still competitive. We're at an 80 for their heat index here. It says the average home sells in 9 days. Now, here's the thing that I do want you to make note of. Sales price to list price. Now, when you saw those price decreases versus the sales price, this is where this thing's starting to come into play. But what I want you to see is how stable this has been. Let's go back 5 years, right? It was under, for years, it was 97%, right? A good real estate agent would get a 97% return on their asking price. And the seller could expect that. And then in 2021, this thing crept up over 100% and everybody was getting over asking. And then it got outrageous. April of 2022 was the apex of the whole thing. And that started to come back down. Homes that sold above list price, there's still 40% of the houses are selling above asking price. So this is the thing I want you guys to keep in perspective when you're looking at Tampa and what's going on here. Homes with price drops. Now look at this thing. This is like rocket ship, y'all. But hey, at the same time, look at this. Hockey stick, hockey stick, hockey. You got these peaks and valleys. This is very consistent with real estate, but this is a big number. We're almost up to 50% in the amount of homes that have taken price reductions versus their original list price. This is something that I think you absolutely want to take note of. All right. Now I want to get into that last statistic that I thought was super important for everyone here, which is, oh man, what do I do with it? Bear with me, guys. I want you to see the foreclosures. Yep, here we go. Sorry, I had to bump around a little bit there, but I think this is important because until people can't afford to pay their mortgages anymore, okay, which if you've got locked in at a 2.5% interest rate, my guess is your mortgage payment is not a significant part of your income. It's probably pretty incredible for you. Congratulations. But until these numbers start to shift, there is no housing crash. And I don't care. There is a channel in Florida where the guy has been preaching this stuff for 8 years. There's been a real estate crash every month, according to him. It was right around the corner. Well, eventually you're going to be right. And while I do believe that we are in for some rocky, I think we're in for a very slow period of home sales. But until foreclosures start to go insane, and that's the other thing. You see foreclosure numbers are up 100%. Well, here's why. Okay, so I want you to take a look at this. This is all of Tampa Bay. This is 4 counties, right, in Tampa Bay. And what I want you to see here is these numbers that we're talking about. Foreclosures and REOs. In 2021, there were 15 foreclosures, and you weren't allowed to foreclose on people in 2020 and 2022. You weren't even allowed. Now, the country on average would have about 280,000 to 310,000 foreclosures annually on a normal year when people weren't losing their minds. There were like 40,000 foreclosures in 2020 and 40,000 foreclosures in 2021 because no one was allowed to. The government stepped in, right? But here's when we're not at that situation anymore. Forbearance is over with, right? Those programs don't exist anymore. Well, you can't enter into them anymore. So a lot of the homes that are being foreclosed on now were actually already distressed before the pandemic 2 years ago, and they're coming to light. But y'all, there were 17 foreclosure sales last month. Where is this wave of properties that people are screaming is coming sometime soon? And once they foreclose, how long does it take to get them out of the house? 17? What are we going to do? There's 17 foreclosures. Nothing. They're sold before it even happened. That's crazy. Short sales, these are people that are underwater, quote unquote, on their mortgages. There were 2. Yeah. So having said all that, I don't, now I'm not sitting here I'm not telling you that it's all sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. It's not. I genuinely believe that we are in for a pretty slow period in real estate over the next 12 to 18 months at least. And this is kind of the holding pattern where prices don't really, they might start trending down, but you're not going to see 10, 20, 30% declines in housing value. It's not happening right now. Anything is possible. Global meltdown, Juan will be wrong, right? But based upon our current economics, where the Federal Reserve is telling you that fundamentally that the economy is strong, I don't care whether you agree with him or not, but he's betting, right? He believes that so much, he's willing to put people out of work, right? By putting pressure on businesses, right? Until this changes dramatically, this is the foreseeable future in real estate. I'm long on Tampa Bay. I've told you guys this. We moved here because we believed in the city, and I think the pandemic has done nothing but strengthen that argument. Doesn't make me right, but I'm long. I'm putting my own money in the area here. I invest in the area, and if this is something that you're interested in, please feel free to reach out to me and my team. If you're considering selling or buying real estate in the Tampa Bay area, you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'll break open the numbers with you guys, show you what's going on. We can look at the local markets that you're interested in, the ones that matter to you most. And I'd be happy to have that conversation with you. Also, if you're checking us out on YouTube and you're not subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button and click that little bell. We do lives like this every single week where we try to bring the news, and I bring local stuff to you. Today, I just want to talk about the Fed because I thought that was pretty pertinent information. I also would talk about the new developments, what's happening in the city and the greater Tampa Bay area as well. But we'd love to connect. Please feel free to put those comments in. I answer all those comments personally, so don't hesitate to drop those in there. I don't have a bot or an assistant answering those as of now. I like answering the questions that you guys bring to the table. And hey, let me know what you'd like to see on these live streams. I love putting them together for you because this is what I do. I just nerd out on this stuff, and then I come share it with our audience, which is great. But I love this. I love knowing what is happening in my local market. I try to keep up to date on the developments and the investments that's going on the city so people can have perspective as well. And listen, we're not perfect. Tampa Bay has its own flaws and its own warts, just like everywhere else. But man, I'm telling you, from a coastal perspective, Tampa is still a value. It is still a value. Y'all don't believe me? Go look at Miami, go look at Naples, right? Go look at San Diego, go look at the Hamptons. Obviously, I'm not comparing Tampa to the Hamptons, but you get where I'm going with this. You can get a lot for your money still. There are more options today because home buyers, you have more options. The best houses are still selling in days. Do not be confused. We wrote an offer on a property last weekend, multiple offers, sold the very first day. Like, this is just part of the deal, right? But it is a wonderful place to call home. We're the Sunshine State, Tampa, St. Pete's Sunshine City. Like, man, it's wonderful. And if that interests you, please feel free to reach out. All my contact information will be down below when we wrap up here. And I'll put links to everything that I showed you guys today down there as well. So if you want to check that out, you can too. And until next time, y'all, go out, live that Tampa life. We'll see you next Saturday.